Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. The Magi here, and today we are going to get all zen in the art of the three-color mana base, and we're going to do it on a budget. But before we get into all that, my Amazon Prime members, listen up. You have a free Twitch sub burning a hole in your digital pocket every month. And you can use that to support the Stronghold and fuel the creation flames of more budget magic content. It's a quick and easy way to make a difference without spending anything extra. And if you don't already have Amazon Prime, did you know you could get up to 6 months absolutely free? I mean, why would we not check this out? Through the link in the description. I mean, let's face it, Amazon has a lot of resources, but they're not going to use it to make budget-oriented Magic the Gathering content unless you send it my way. Now, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, right. Late last year, I released a short-form video with the theme of producing a more budget-friendly mana base for our decks. And, well, people wanted to talk about this, some because they loved it, some because they hated it. And ironically, both those that loved it and hated it were for the same basic reason. It flies in the face of traditional arena wisdom to spend a huge chunk of your rare wild cards on rare dual lands. And now that the three-color decks are going to be front and center for at least the next few months, I've had a lot of requests to apply the same sort of logic to a three-color mana base, and, well, that's exactly what we're going to do. Because I never miss an opportunity to talk about my package. Land package, that is. I'd like to begin our discussion of individual cards by revisiting some of those recommendations made in the earlier version of the video, primarily because of the upcoming rotation towards the end of July. That's right, folks, just a couple of months away. First up, we've got Thran Portal, and it's, Pain Land-like ability to allow you to name any color as it comes into play and generate mana for the cost of a single life. The fact is, this has served us very well in Standard over the last nearly 3 years. But with it being so close to rotation and the fact that it's going to have a much lower utility even for budget players in the Eternal format, I don't recommend crafting this at this point. However, if you already have one or more of these, please consider continuing to use them in your budget decks until rotation actually happens. And of course, Plaza of Heroes is in the exact same rotation group, but this promises to hold a much higher utility in the Eternal formats, particularly for Brawl. So if Brawl is your jam, this should continue to be on your craft consideration list. If we consider a basic only mana base that is evenly split between two colors, that is generally going to mean 12 sources for each color. And to be honest, this is going to be fine for most decks as long as you're not pushing specific color pips too far. Like a spell that is 1 green is going to be potentially hard to cast on curve, whereas a spell in the same 3 mana slot that is 2 in a green should provide no problem. And of course, the more specific your color pips are, the harder these things are to cast on curve. Like double R, double G is pretty unlikely to hit on 4, even with 12 sources for each color. And this, of course, is the basis for the often given recommendation to invest in multicolor mana sources. To get a glimpse at the other extreme, let's consider the starter decks. And these are designed by the Arena client so that new players can pretty much always cast their spells and never run into those awkward situations that we were just discussing. However, it maybe goes a little too far. They do this by putting primarily common tap lands like the Gain lands and the Guild Gates in, and the tempo base here can be pretty considerable. The temples also come into play tapped, and frankly, they may be the worst rare dual lands available in Standard, but you have them, so you might as well use them as a starting point. And to be frank, these are going to be viable in Standard longer than any other rare dual land currently offered in Standard, so it's not a bad place to consider using wildcards for longevity's sake. So like I said, 16, 17 sources per color is potentially overkill, and the hit to tempo here is very often, for budget players, going to outweigh the color consistency. So what's a budget player to do? Well, the fact is, my humble suggestion looks something like this. By cutting the Gain lands down to just 3, eliminating the gates altogether, and adding in a Fabled Passage, we are providing a very stable 14 sources per color. We have also cut down the tempo load of lands that come into play tapped by half. And we have only spent a single rare wild card to do it. Frankly, this is a recommendation I would make to all new players as a day one upgrade to all of your starter decks. Regardless of color, moving towards a configuration like this in your mana base is going to provide you a much more consistent play experience. If we shift the same line of thinking over to a 3-color mana base built just out of basics, that would provide 8 sources per color. And let me tell you, that is going to be wildly inconsistent with any multicolor spells within your deck. And frankly, if you're not playing multicolor spells, why are you running a 3-color deck? So this simply is not going to work. If we were to apply that same budget mana base thinking evenly to a 3-color mana base, we would end up with something like this. And as you can see, we expanded our temples to cover all 3 of our 2-color combinations, and we replaced the 2-color Gain lands with the 3-color tri-lands made available to us through Tarkir Dragonstorm. And because we are currently drafting that set, opening packs from that set, and these tri-lands are available in at least half of the Tarkir jump-in packs, we should be able to add in those tri-lands without the use of wildcards. And this is going to give us 12 sources per color. So basically no better, no worse than a 2-color deck that is using all basics. But we can do better. In the Dragonstorm draft strategy video, I talk about focusing on 2 of your colors and then splashing the 3rd as a way to have a more stable deck within the limited environment. And frankly, the same can be applied to Constructed. If we were to focus, say, on blue and green and splash red, that would give us a total of 14 sources in our primary colors. So exactly equal to what we had in our 2-color budget deck, while also providing 8 sources on our splash color, which is no worse than if we were using all basics across an even split. So maybe not the most ideal mana base, but to be frank, this is about as good as it gets on the mana base without starting to invest more wildcards, which may be the correct answer, but there are other strategies we can apply to the broader deck in order to make it more stable. When you build these budget 3-color decks, consider reserving that 3rd splash color for things like really premium removal and permanents that will come down on curve in the upper portion of your mana curve, starting converted mana cost 3 or higher. This also opens up the opportunity to use some turn 1, turn 2 resources to ensure that you have a better chance of access to that third color and its lower source count within your deck. The Devotees and Monument cycles are both good examples of this from Dragonstorm. And of course, if green is one of your primary colors, don't forget about the insane number of mana dorks available in Standard that provide mana of any color. Just with a quick glance, I found more than a dozen at pretty much every viable rarity. And hey, speaking of green, don't forget you can pick up the green-based rare dual lands from Murder's Call-Off Manor in the Slime Against Humanity jump-in pack. Yes, this is only the green dual lands, but it is a great way to pick up rare dual lands on the cheap. You may also want to consider adding in a mana rock to your deck. Just one of these can make a big difference and add some additional utilities depending upon your individual card choice. There's several noteworthy ones in Standard right now. So there we go, guys. Tons of ways to make a 3-color deck work for you and still do it on a budget. Now, be sure to get down in the comments, let me know what you think about these options, and share anything you think I may have overlooked. And of course, I want to take this opportunity to thank my supporting patrons, because being a small content creator comes with big bills. And I just couldn't do everything that I do without their monthly support. Thanks, guys. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful in your arena experience, we have a few suggestions for what you could watch next.